Welcome to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. Today, we have an incredible journey to share with you. I'm your host, Anthony Dahya, and I'm so grateful that you're here listening to this episode. And would love for you to share this episode with your friends, your family, and your workmates. And if you haven't already done so, please follow this podcast so you don't miss any future episodes and so we can get this podcast out to the wider community. Today, it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to welcome you all to this podcast interview. Our guest came from very ordinary beginnings and is an only child spending much of her time dreaming of independence and seeing the world. Driven by fierce determination, she worked tirelessly to secure a spot in the competitive Bachelor of Communication Studies program. However, her path took many unexpected turns, from discovering a passion for PR and traveling through Southeast Asia to teach English in Hong Kong, and navigating complexities of travel to Tibet. Along the way, she worked for some of London's best advertising agencies, but ultimately sought a more meaningful career in health and wellness. Inspired by a life coaching book and personal experiences, she returned to New Zealand to become a health coach, blending lifestyle medicine with Eastern philosophy and Ayurveda. Now she helps people find balance and regain their spark through personalized coaching and retreats. Welcome, Shelley Smith, to the Champion Mindset Collective podcast. And Shelley, you've been my health coach, coaching me. How's that experience been for you?
Oh, you're an ideal client, Anthony. Very coachable.
Thank you. So let's start with a little bit about your childhood. Tell us a little bit about who Shelley Smith was when she was little, and how did you get to this journey of coaching?
Yeah, so I was born in Wellington, a little seaside town called Raumati, and we moved to Auckland when I was 5 years old. And I really appreciate the opportunities I had moving to Auckland and out of that small town, because who knows what I would have been doing if we'd stayed there. And it was a pretty simple childhood, grew up close to the beach, didn't really do a lot, that classic Kiwi childhood playing in the backyard. And so I was always very determined to be independent and to get out and about when I was old enough. And as soon as I could catch the bus with friends, I'd be out and about. And yeah, I just loved meeting people and having adventures. And my mum had done an early Kentucky. And so I was always inspired by her travel photos, and really wanted to even get out of New Zealand and see the world.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Sounds like a really, really lovely childhood, growing up with dreams and wanting to have that independence to really go out and be you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never really knew what I wanted to do career-wise. It was more travel, 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 and career came second until I discovered journalism. And I guess I've always had a curious mind, right? So I worked my ass off to get into this Bachelor of Communications, which back then there was like 200 spaces for 1,000 kids. And so I was writing letters to Amnesty International in my lunchtime in seventh form. And we had a radio show at school. So I was lucky enough to have a radio show, and I wrote for the school newspaper. And, like I did everything within my control to make sure I got one of those spots. And then, as you do once you get to university, you're like, oh, actually, I want to do something else. And so ended up going into PR and then traveling, actually. I went to Hong Kong when I was 23 and decided that I could teach English with absolutely no experience, even being around children, and no kind of teaching experience, and just had quite the adventure for 3 years there.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's look at your passion and your purpose. How did the journey from aspiring journalist to becoming a health coach unfold? And what were the key turning points in that journey?
So when I worked in London, one of my first jobs, I sat next to this woman that was studying something around nutrition and well-being, and she really inspired me to actually look at is taking the contraceptive pill a good idea, um, and just what I was eating, what I was putting into my body, my whole lifestyle, and that sort of flicked a bit of a switch in me into a different way of living because London, well, and Hong Kong, and before I moved was very much partying, late nights, lots of drinking, and didn't really, when you're young, you think you're bulletproof, right? So I'll sleep when I'm dead kind of mentality. And I guess it was that turning point in London that I started to take everything a bit more seriously, but still working in advertising, work hard, play hard kind of mentality. And it wasn't until I came back to New Zealand and I thought, okay, what do you really want to do? And when I took 6 months and I traveled from Mexico down to Peru on my way back to New Zealand. And one of the last things I did was ayahuasca in Peru, right? This plant medicine.
Mhm.
And I'd wanted to sort of get some answers around, is moving back to New Zealand the right thing to do? You love the big cities and you love the hustle and bustle. Is New Zealand going to be enough for you? And it really helped me to come back to New Zealand with a very open mind, to settle back in. And that was sort of a really great, hard, but great thing to do.
Mm.
And then I'd started to have conversations and with people and start to talk about doing some other sort of career. So I read this life coaching book called Maybe It's You by Lauren Zandel. And it's not an easy book. You do homework throughout it, kind of reflecting on your life and what your values are. And I decided, okay, I'm really into health and well-being because I've gone on this journey to take better care of myself. And I want other people to feel good in the morning the way I do, because I think it's achievable for absolutely everyone.
Mm.
And so by chance, I was at a 30th birthday party and a neighbor from my childhood was there. And she said she had just studied health coaching. And I was like, okay, what's that? I've never heard of it. Went and looked it up and found the pre-cure course, which she had done. I was like, yeah, I really align with this idea of prevention being cure, right? We don't have
Mm.
to get sick. We
Mm.
can prevent illness by the way we live our lives and our mindset. And so, I've just become such an advocate for health coaching, and it truly is
Mm.
my purpose now.
That's great. That's awesome. What a journey. So, how did you embrace change? Like moving from Hong Kong alone at the age of 23 is a big step. How did that experience impact your personal and professional growth?
I guess I've always had a really open mind. So I went to Hong Kong, like I didn't know a single person. I didn't have a job. I didn't know much. I'd backpacked around Southeast Asia, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, but I'd never been to Hong Kong, right? And it is completely different there. But I went in just with a everything will work out mentality. And my mum has always said to me, like, oh, Shell, you always fall on your feet.
Mm.
And I truly do. But I really believe it's because of my attitude. Like I maybe because she's planted that seed in me that things
Mm.
will always work out. They actually do. But it's also how I operate when I'm in those situations. I say yes to opportunities. I put myself out there and I explore and I use that curious mind to my
Mm.
advantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important to be curious about your life and what's happening for you. And our attitudes are based on our values and our beliefs and so on. So it's very important to be curious and learn from that. Can you recount your challenging experience in Tibet and the lessons that you learned about resilience and accepting help from strangers?
Yeah, so I've done lots of travel on my own to quite intrepid places. And I'd always been fascinated by Tibetan Buddhism, actually inspired by the Beastie Boys. Always had a bit of a like rebellious nature, and really cared about injustice in the world. And so I wanted to go to Lhasa and see the Patola Palace and just explore. And to go to Tibet, you need a Chinese visa and a Tibetan visa, and you have to go as part of a tour group. So I got my Chinese visa, and the tour company were like going to the office every day, and the Chinese bureaucracy was like, oh, no, can't do it today, can't do it today, classic, So I ended up, a friend was supposed to come with me, and because of the delays in getting the visa, she couldn't. She was also a teacher, and her school holidays were slightly different to mine. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm going on my own then, because I want to go to Tibet. And the day I flew to Shanghai and then to Xi'an, where the Terracotta Warriors are. And the plane had been delayed in Shanghai due to weather. So I got to Xi'an sort of quite late at night. And then there was a final flight to a place called Jining, which is just outside of the Tibetan region. So you can go there and wait for the visa. And then I was catching a 23-hour train to Lhasa.
Mm-hmm.
So I fell asleep on the plane to Jining. And when I woke up, we were back in Xi'an. And it's, about midnight by this time. And no one, there was no English on the plane. I was the only foreigner, and everyone's getting off. And I didn't know what was happening. I just sort of followed everyone, and some people were getting their bags, some people weren't. So I grabbed mine, and I just sort of stood around in this airport hangar in the middle of the night and trying to, like, what should I do? And some guys came up to me, and they lived in Shanghai, and they spoke a bit of English, and they said, oh, we couldn't land because of the weather, so we're going to stay the night here. They're taking us to a hotel. Come with us, we'll look after you. So we get to the hotel, it's about 2 a.m. by now, and the hotel's like, oh, sorry, no rooms. So we were like, what are we going to do? Am I just going to have to sit in the lobby till 8 a.m. when they were taking us back to the airport? And the guy said, oh, call the airline from my phone, because you're a foreigner, you'll get better treatment, which sucks if that's the case, but kind of over there. So I called, and then they put reception back on the line, and she said, oh, okay, yeah, we've got you a room magically, right? So just being difficult. I got a room, all good. Next morning, meet these new friends in the lobby, and we fly to Jining. And I get to Jining, right? Small airport in the middle of nowhere, and no one's there to pick me up, right? So I'm on this tour, but I'm the only person on the tour, and no one's there. And these guys, they say to me, oh, they've probably taken your money, this happens all the time. You can come to our hotel with us while you sort something else out. We've got a friend that can help you. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm literally in the middle of nowhere with no one. What if this tour company has just taken my money and isn't legit? So I'm going back to the hotel. This was before the days of having Wi-Fi on your phone when you're traveling. And so I was trying to use the hotel's internet. I think they had a computer that you could log onto to email the tour company to say, hey, where are you? And it turns out they'd sent someone to the airport the night before, but because the plane didn't land and the airport didn't tell them when it was going to land, he'd gone home to sleep, and he was sleeping.
Wow.
And so luckily someone did finally come to pick me up, and I got to go to Lhasa a few days later. But it was very scary. But I had just decided, whatever happens, I will get to go to Lhasa somehow. Like, these guys will help me to go on another tour, and I'll just figure it out. And that experience has helped me in so many situations moving forward, to see that people are good and want to help you, and that, yeah, you can trust people from you, but also that everything works out. Like, it'll be okay no matter what. Yeah.
Was there ever a doubt in your mind, like these people are gonna, something was gonna happen, something bad was gonna happen, or
I feel like I didn't really have a choice.
right?
Like, it was such a remote area that there weren't other people that spoke English. I mean, the lucky thing about being a native English speaker is that no matter where you travel, you will find generally someone else that speaks some English and can help you.
Mm,
But without them, I was like, well, then I'm on my own. I can't really hail a taxi because I don't speak Mandarin. Like it would be a very hard place. And this was like 20 years ago, no, 15 years ago, right? So
mm,
it would have been a very hard place to be stranded, and it would have all worked out in the end, I'm sure. But,
yeah.
these people had been very kind to me. So I trusted that they would also help me here, and they stayed with me until I got picked up by the tour people. Yeah,
Mm, mm,
yeah, very grateful to them. But it was before social media, so I've never added
yeah.
them on Facebook or anything. Yeah.
Gosh, that's even the phones in those days would have been just a normal analog phones, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Maybe it was an early smartphone. I can't
early
remember.
smartphones.
I really can't remember. But no, I did go on the computer, to sort of try use the internet to send an email. Yeah.
Wow, what an experience that would have been. Yeah. So, in your career, like you've been through obviously transformation, what motivated you to leave that fast-paced advertising world and pursue your career in health and wellness?
Well, honestly, I never really cared about ads. I loved the people, I loved the perks of advertising, but the actual work was just there, and I,
Mm,
I really wanted to do something more meaningful in my life. What would people say about me at my funeral? Oh,
mm,
that I worked on this ad and I was good at drinking and staying up late. Like, no, come on. I want to be remembered for really trying to make a difference and being, that everyone who has an interaction with me, they feel like it's a positive interaction.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. So how did the concept of, because you mentioned to me about the concept of Santosha, which is contentment, and the yoga training that you did in India. Um, like, how did that influence your approach to life and coaching?
Yeah, so before I decided to be a health coach, or before my course started, I went to India for a month in January 2020 to do
Mm,
yoga teacher training because I felt like it would be very complementary to have those skills. And part of yoga teacher training is yoga philosophy. And one
mhm,
of the niyamas, which is one of the sort of, I guess, morals or guidelines for life, is Santosha. And it means contentment in Sanskrit. And
mhm,
it's all about not chasing something bigger and better in life, but being content with what you have. And that really resonated with me because I see so many clients, so many people I know, always they want a bigger house, they want a better car, they want this
mm,
and that. And that doesn't make you happy.
no,
It's experiences and connections with others that truly
mm,
bring you happiness.
absolutely.
And I had a really pivotal moment with that philosophy teacher, Jadu is his name, absolute legend. And he said to me, why do you see being busy all the time as a measure of your success? And it kind of floored me and stuck with me because I was the type of person that any kind of downtime was seen as, wasting time and being unproductive. And so at the weekends, I had to be out rushing around all the time. And when you spend a month in somewhere like this doing yoga teacher training, a beautiful location on the beach, and all you're doing each day is like 4 hours of yoga, some meditation, some study, learning new things, and you have the opportunity to slow down, be off your
Mm,
technology, and really decompress.
mm,
It really makes you assess how you're operating in life and
mm,
if it's serving you. 75% of what people present at with the doctors are stress related illnesses.
Wow.
And that's so unnecessary.
Mm,
It's the way we're living our lives that's making us sick, and we have control over it to change it. But you've got to recognize that
mm.
and pull back and set some boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. I went through that last year where the work I was in before I got made redundant was very stressful, and and I ended up with pains in my neck and my shoulder and all sorts of stuff, and even ended up with like ulcers in my mouth. It was horrible. It's interesting what stress can do to your body, and like you said, it's so important to be aware of what's happening in our lives, in our body, and to be able to regulate and then be able to do things like meditation. And since I've been doing that over the last year, I've found that it's actually helped me be more calmer and be one with myself, be one with spiritually with the universe, and really nowadays I don't feel stressed about anything really, because I just let everything go and just let everything evolve as it's meant to. Because so much
That's
we try to be so in control of things in life that we don't know we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, and it's sometimes you just gotta just let it be. And
Yeah, stop trying to drive all the time. That's very masculine energy,
mm,
right? Pulling
mm,
back and being in the feminine a little bit more
absolutely.
and enjoying the journey, enjoying the ride of life. And that's what Santosha's about. So many people I work with, they're always, especially in the sort of 20s, 30s age bracket, even early 40s, they're chasing, chasing, chasing. And
Mm,
to a certain extent, that's okay, right? Because that's the time in your life where you've got the energy and you've got the will to do it, right? But you've got to enjoy the daily life as well and
mm,
have time for yourself. Like if you spend all day sitting in traffic, rushing around from thing to thing, where's the pleasure in life? And there's so much to enjoy in life. If you watch the news, they'll tell you otherwise, right? You'll have a very, very negative worldview. But the beauty of walking in nature, if I walk down the street and I can hear the birds in the trees, I actually did that the other day and I stopped and I looked at them and just really was like, wow, if I had my headphones in, I would never have heard this. Or, when you've got the spring flowers and stone fruit season and all these gifts from nature that we
mm,
don't stop to appreciate because we're always driving forward and, trying to get to the next thing.
absolutely. Yeah, totally agree with you there. All right. So like the in what ways do you see health coaching addressing gaps in our current medical system, particularly concerning the lifestyle illnesses that are present?
Yeah, so health coaching is a relatively new discipline, and it's come about because doctors were finding that patients weren't listening to their advice,
Hmm.
maybe not taking their medication, or they'd be talking to them about nutrition and exercise and sleep, and they wouldn't be doing it. And so then they just get worse, and then they just take more medication. But actually having a coach approach with a patient, so working with someone to figure out what's actually what they want to do now with their health and what's going to work for their lifestyle and not trying to make too many changes at once. It got better results. And so health coaching is there to bridge the gap in our medical system. And in my opinion, it's doing a great job. We have health coaches implemented in GP clinics throughout New Zealand.
Mm,
The aim, I think we got some stats yesterday. By maybe the end of the year, they'll be available to 1 million New Zealanders. And it's free to see a health coach in a GP clinic.
mm,
So, we should be using that service and really taking care of a health coach teaches you the skills to
mhm,
maintain your own health. You
mm,
don't need to see a health coach forever, right? Once you learn about nutrition and put some healthy habits in place around, all those sort of aspects, stress management, sleep, nutrition, exercise, and your relationship to yourself and the
mm,
world around you, you should be able to self-manage, and that's the goal.
yeah,
Because a lot of, like I've said, stress is a huge cause of our health problems. Stress can raise your blood sugar, and then you're a type 2 diabetic.
mm,
Stress can impact your autoimmune conditions and
yeah,
inflammation in the body, and so many things. So health coaches are there to walk alongside you in a really non-judgmental way. We help you to make a plan, some goals, and then we keep you accountable. And it's the accountability that people love about coaching. And I'm sure in your coaching practice as well, that's what people really resonate with, is because,
mm,
let's be honest, most people know what they should be doing. They're
yeah,
just not doing it for whatever reason.
yeah,
And often it comes from what I see is more, they have these core issues around not loving themselves, or, not having very high self-esteem. And so that manifests in maybe throwing themselves into work, and their whole identity in life is around who they are at work. And then because they're so busy at work, they then don't plan their meals.
mm,
They exercise, they don't have time to exercise, and then they're going to bed late, because they're
mm,
working so hard during the day, and they've got so much to do in the nighttime because they're unorganized. Then they want to stay up and they want to watch some TV to decompress, combined often with alcohol, to
mm,
relieve that stress. And
mm,
it just becomes a really negative cycle. And it doesn't
yeah.
have to be that way.
No, no, it doesn't. And I think it's brilliant that a lot of the GPs have got health coaches and offered for free. And I remember before you contacted me, I was like, oh, it'd be good to have someone that can kind of guide me nutritionally. And there you go, you popped up and you gave me a call and said, hey, I'm your health coach, and I'm like, wow, that's cool. I just thought about it, and then you just
Look at you
appeared.
manifesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a genie. I was just like saying, "This is what I want," and bang, there you were. But I must say that the advice that you've given me has been very helpful. And again, like you said, it's things that we know already, but it's just that we don't, we're not conscious of it. We're not living a conscious life. And until we start living a conscious life and going and being curious about what's going on in our lives, and and understanding what is causing those um, diseases, and diseases that which are caused from disease, and
Yeah.
so it's so important to be able to have that. And like for years now, like you go to a doctor, they give you pills, and that's it.
Put a
But
band-aid on it, but never getting
exactly,
to the root cause.
no. But it's so
Yeah.
great to see that GPs and health coaches are working together to look after their clients, and I think it's brilliant. I think it's amazing what you guys are doing, and there should be more of that right across New Zealand and the world. Yeah.
Yeah. So I do that 2 days a week. I work within the clinic and I work within the system that the government's implemented, and then I work privately as well. And
Mm,
what I do privately gives me a much bigger scope. I get to spend more time with people, and I get to really bring in, how I do it a bit differently from other coaches, as I use that knowledge of Eastern philosophy and Ayurveda, and sort of an Eastern view of living, and combine it with that Western lifestyle medicine to give people a really holistic view of their lives and what's going
mm,
on. Um, and I think that's a really, that feels really special to me, to sort of take the best of everything. If you go to if you have a car accident, right, the hospital is the
mhm,
perfect place for you. But
mm,
so many things are way more complicated with that, with our health. Like you were saying,
mm,
a pill isn't going to fix it. A
no.
pill is just going to mask the problem. And so when you really get people to heal themselves, and to feel empowered to take care of their own health. That's the key, right? Is that
Mm,
instead of someone telling you what to do all the time, you realize that you have the power to make changes. And by just doing tiny little things, like I've had a client who she's like, oh, who knew that she works a 60-hour week and her only thing was to go for a 10-minute walk before work every
Mm,
day. And she
mm,
came back to me and she's like, I've got so much more energy. And she was feeling amazing just from a 10-minute walk. And that then empowers her to make other changes because she's feeling better. Because when you're feeling
mm,
you don't want to get out and exercise and you don't
no,
want to meal prep, right? How boring. You just don't have the energy. It's much easier just to order something on your phone.
yeah, absolutely. I remember back in 2018 when my mum passed away, and I went to my Dr. Paul, and he said, "Oh, look, I'm not going to give you anything, any pills." I'm like, "I don't want any pills." And he said, "Look, I'm going to prescribe you 30 minutes of exercise a day." And I was like,
Oh,
"Okay." And and then I decided that I'd never run in my life. I decided I was going to take up running in half marathons. And I've got all these medals on my wall, but I think I did something like maybe 15 to 20 10K runs within half marathons. And it made me feel great. And just getting out there and pushing myself, and being able to reach the goals that I'd set for myself, and but also feeling healthy about myself. And it was great. It was awesome. So yeah,
I say this to my clients all the time. You're young, you can push yourself way more than what you're doing, you know.
yeah,
Most people I talk to aren't doing any sort of exercise, or they're like, oh yeah, I go for a walk a couple of times a week. And I'm like, walking is great, but that's
mm,
more of a mental health thing, right?
mm,
We need to be doing resistance exercise and building our muscle for our longevity because
yeah,
you don't want to get to old age and have a fall, right? This is a crazy stat. So within a year of having a fall, you have a 25% chance of dying.
wow,
Yeah. And it's not from the fall itself, it's from the complications of the recovery afterwards. And
mm,
often when people have a fall, right, it's a long recovery if it's their hip or back or something. And then they're not mobile. So they're just sitting in a chair. And if you love to play golf and tennis and be out and about, and then all of a sudden you can't move, then your mental health starts to go. Then the brain diseases start to come in, right?
mm,
And so that's why
mm,
you want to do the work now when you're younger for future you. Don't wait till it's too late, you know,
yeah,
or you can't do it. And so this really important sort of test you can do, which is being able to get up off the floor with one hand. Like so many of my patients at the clinic, you know, they can't, they won't sit on the floor because they won't be able to get back up. You know, you want to be out being able to go for a hike. You want to be
mm,
able to lift shopping bags upstairs. You want to be able to lift a 10-kilo suitcase over your head to put it in, you know, if you're
yeah,
going on an airplane. All of these really functional movements. And that's what you should be training for.
mm,
You don't have to go to the gym, just do something, right?
mm,
And challenge yourself. Push
absolutely,
yourself. Because you are
absolutely,
incapable. It's use it or lose it.
very true, very true. Well said as well. Okay, how do you balance, or how do you help your clients find a balance in their lives, especially for those who feel like their identity is solely tied to their work?
Hmm. So I've actually created a retreat,
Hmm.
which I'm doing next year in India, in Kerala, in southern India, which is where I did my yoga teacher training,
Hmm.
because it was such an inspirational place for me. And with all of my travel experience and adventures, I want to put together this retreat to give people the opportunity to reignite that inner spark that they had. You know, they're burnt out from work, they're on the treadmill, just chasing, and to take some time out for themselves to rebalance, to figure
Mm,
out who they want to be, how they want to operate when they get back home, you know, how they want to have that balance. So we'll be going to see the Ayurvedic doctor and getting Ayurvedic treatments. We'll be learning how to cook the Southern Indian food. We'll be doing yoga every day. We'll be staying on a houseboat, like having a new experience. And we'll be doing some coaching along the way as well. So it's a full, mind, body, soul experience. And India is a very daunting place to
Yeah.
go on your own. I've been twice on my own. I went once when I was 23, and I was probably very naive. Straight out of, was living in Hong Kong, like, yeah, I'll go to India. Didn't quite realize how stressful it would be, and how
Mm,
when getting back to Hong Kong, I could take a deep breath and feel relaxed, believe it or not, in Hong Kong with the hustle and bustle. But this part of India is not like that at all. It's super
mm,
chill. It's
mm.
palm-lined beaches, laid-back atmosphere, and they call Kerala God's own country because
Wow.
it's just stunning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been there myself. I've been to other parts of India, but central and north, but not not to Kerala. But sounds like an amazing experience. Um, so another question I had for you was, can you tell us more about those retreats in Vakala? Is that in Kerala?
Oh, Vakala, yes.
Vakala,
So
Vakala.
Kerala is the state in India,
Yeah,
and Vakala is the beach town.
right. And when is this retreat coming up?
Yeah, so it's the 15th to the 29th of January, 2025.
Hmm.
And the idea is for it to be flexible. It's not going on a group tour, organized fun. I've done lots of those in my life, and I absolutely hate, where it's like, oh, every day is jam-packed with activities, and you have to do this because you've already paid for it, and we're all eating at this restaurant, but sometimes you might not feel like dinner that night, or you don't want to go there, you want to try something else. So the
Mm.
whole idea is that you've got flexibility, right? There's things that we will do together, like the cooking class or
Mm.
staying on the houseboat, but the rest of it will all be down to you. If you want to go surfing, if you want to get acupuncture, if you want to get a singing bowl healing,
Mm.
whatever you want to do, right? I'm
Mm.
there to facilitate and to give you your own eat, pray, love experience in this beautiful location.
Wow, so, sounds absolutely amazing.
Come, Anthony. I've got a
Yeah,
spot.
yeah.
Yeah,
Have to
got
save
a
some.
beautiful clifftop villa
Yeah.
overlooking the Arabian Ocean. So we'll be
Wow.
doing yoga out, looking over the beach and watching the sunset because it's such a beautiful place to watch the sunset. When I was there for yoga teacher training, we'd rush out of meditation class in the evening to get down to the beach for the sunset every night.
Mm. Just sounds amazing. How do people sign up for that?
Yeah, so they can jump on my website, santoshahealthcoaching.co.nz, and I've got a whole page dedicated to it. So they can get in touch with me, and I'll actually have a call with everyone that's
Nice.
interested because I really want to make sure that it's the right mix of people and that they are ready for India, like it. You will need to go on a tuk-tuk and be quite, open-minded about trying new things. And, I've traveled with in groups where sometimes someone wasn't a good fit in that sense. They weren't sort
Mm.
of embracing the different countries. So India is one of those places where you really do have to be open to new experiences and that things aren't going to be the same as New Zealand and the food's different and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's it's nowhere near as I mean, last time I was in India was 1983. So I think
Oh,
a lot has changed since I came back from India. But I was in an ashram in India, and so I understand, like,
cool.
we did yoga and we did meditation and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, back when I was about from the age of 7 to till 12. And yeah, it was unfortunately, it was a little bit like army and prison camp, but it still had its good stuff, good things there as well. Yeah.
And what
So
did you learn from that experience?
I learned a lot from that experience, and I guess that made me more independent as well because I saw my father once a year maybe, and I didn't know my mum until I was 21. So I lived
Oh,
in an ashram for yeah, about 5 to 6 years. Yeah, which was a massive eye opener. Um, amongst like as later in life having to heal through some of that trauma as well, has been my journey over the last few years. Yeah. So before we kick into the final 5 quick fire questions, how do people find you on social media? And you said you had website. So how do people find you? And we'll put those links into the podcast so that people can then find you and click and join your tour or your trip to India and other events that you have going.
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, santosha.health.coaching_. I'm on LinkedIn, Shelley Smith, and then my website. I also have a Facebook page for Santosha Health Coaching, so you can get in contact with me through any of those.
That's awesome. That'd be great. So we'll put those links into the podcast description, and people can click and come and visit your social media pages and your website. We're at the stage where I'm going to ask you 5 quick fire questions, and you can answer this in like one word or a quick little sentence, whatever you choose. So the first question is, how do you define success, and has that definition changed for you over time?
Yeah, it's definitely changed over time. So I define success as having that inner contentment and that inner knowing that I'm doing a good job, and I really feel that now. And because I have that feeling of Santosha, and through my work, I try and help other people get to that feeling as well.
Mm,
For me, that success, that inner peace and happiness.
mm, that's great. Question 2, who has been your greatest inspiration and why?
I'm inspired by lots of people. So at the moment, I'm doing a Rongoa Māori medicine course with this beautiful teacher called Donna Kerridge. And her worldview is really inspiring me. It really aligns with how I see things as well. How we need to be living more in tune with nature. We need to be respecting it more, and also the healing power of the
Mm,
water, of the bush. And so, like how Dr. Paul prescribed you exercise, we need to be prescribing spending time in nature. And in the cities, that's just not what we're doing. We're so
mm,
connected from where our food comes from eating seasonally, and we're not spending enough time out. And we're so lucky to live in New Zealand and be surrounded by beautiful bush, beautiful beaches. When I lived in Hong Kong, you couldn't find grass anywhere, and the little bits of grass they did have, you weren't allowed to sit on it, and they had it actually cordoned off with security
wow.
in the park, in the zoological gardens there. And I used to miss walking barefoot on the grass, which is something you just take for granted here.
Mm, mm, yeah, absolutely. So what is something that you believe in that others might disagree with?
So, as we've talked about, we all make choices in our life with what we put in our bodies and how we treat ourselves. And so I think this is really controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. You know, for generations, we've known how harmful smoking cigarettes are, and now
Mm,
vaping.
mm,
Um, Although people would argue that, the evidence is starting to come out about how bad vaping is. And so if you choose to smoke and vape and you get a health condition that's related to it, I think you should have to pay for your own health care because you've made that choice in life. And this is the
absolutely.
consequence.
Yeah, we're responsible for our health, um, our life, and if we choose to do something, then at the end of the day, the consequences sits with us. You know,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I have no idea how we would police this or action it, but it's just something I believe.
Well, I second you on that. You know, it's like there's a saying: whatever you put inside your body is what you become. And you choose to do that, then it's no one else's responsibility except for yourself. So
Yeah.
totally agree with you on that. I did smoke when I was 13 and gave up when I was 16, and that was it. Never touched it ever again.
Is that your rebellious side getting out of the ashram? You're like, I'm not smoking
I was back in New Zealand by that time, and I remember my dad caught me and he made me smoke a whole packet of cigarettes. He's like, if you want to smoke, there you go, smoke the whole pack. And I was like, no, don't want to. um, so, okay, so if you could go back and give your younger self one piece, I mean, you're fairly young already, so, but if you could go back to your younger self, back when you were 23 and those ages, what would be one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
I would set better boundaries with men.
Yeah,
Because what you put out there in the universe is what you attract back. And if you
absolutely.
allow people to treat you poorly, they'll continue to do that, right? Have better boundaries, young ladies.
Yeah, and that comes with self-worth, understanding, valuing your self-worth, and it's also about your self-esteem. And so for those that are listening, your self-esteem is made up of your needs, your emotions, and your boundaries. And if you're not looking after your personal needs, not prioritizing yourself, you're not letting your being able to be one with your emotions, and you're not setting healthy boundaries, then your self-esteem is going to be low. So the way to boost your self-esteem is by, first of all, valuing yourself. You are valuable. You are more valuable than anyone else. And value yourself, and then make sure that you're looking after your needs, your emotions, and your boundaries. And that also will build confidence in yourself as well.
Oof, that hits good, Anthony.
Yeah,
We all need that reminder, don't we?
absolutely. I went through this. I've been through this over the last few years, and it was 2 years ago I came to the realization that I wasn't valuing myself, and letting people treat me the way that they treated me. So it was actually me. It was my fault. I was the one letting people treat me that way. So the minute you then realize that you're the one responsible, just like the smoking, then that's where you start setting boundaries and prioritizing yourself.
And then
Absolutely.
you start attracting better people, better opportunities. It's not just in a romantic sense, it's to do with your friendships, the way you interact with your family, job opportunities. Absolutely everything changes when you value yourself.
Absolutely. So when you do those things, your energy that you put out changes into the energy that you put out into the world, into the universe. You would know that if you sit next to someone, you can feel their energy, and you go whether it's good or bad. And then that energy is also how you're vibrating, like your energy is vibration in the universe. And a lot of things in our life we want or we desire, and we can't get to them because we're not an exact match energy wise for that. It's only when we become an exact match that we attract what we desire. So I've learned this over in the last year that by doing the work, by changing myself, and Dr. Joe Dispenza says, if you want to be a different person, then you have to change. And if you don't change, then you're going to stay the same, because you can't be the same person. You can't do the same things and be a different person. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And when you do that change, and when you do those quantum shifts, then what happens is that your vibrational energy changes and rises. And where I'm heading towards is that love and enlightenment, energy of 528 and above hertz, and that will attract exactly what I'm being, because what you attract is what you are being in this current present moment. So yeah, there you go. A little bit to share. Um,
Powerful.
yeah. So last question is, what is one message you would like to share with the world?
Free Palestine.
Yeah.
And I'll elaborate on that. So
Mm.
one of my travels was going to stay on the West Bank with a Palestinian family about 10 years ago. So we went through the apartheid wall. We got shot at by Israeli soldiers who were in the towers on the wall when we got off the public bus. Warning shots, but still absolutely terrifying as a Kiwi girl who's never been around guns. And we saw what life was like on both sides of the wall and how unfair it was, and opportunities. And that has, ever since seeing that in real life, even now, if I hadn't seen that, I would still know that genocide is wrong and what is happening is very wrong. But having been there and met people, talked to, stayed with local people, talked to them, and seen what life is like for myself, you can't sit back and say nothing and do nothing and be indifferent to it.
Shelley, it's been an amazing interview. I've loved having you on this podcast episode. Learned so much about your life, your journey, and your coaching. And I'd love to bring you back for a few more episodes, do some tips and tricks, and really share a little bit more in depth. So, would you be open to that?
Absolutely, I'd love that.
Yeah, cool. So, thank you so much for being here and really sharing your journey with us. It's been amazing learning more about you and the way you coach, the way you help people. And I'm sure that people who have listened to this episode are going to get some gems out of this. And so thank you so much. If you've been watching this episode and you feel inspired or you've got some value out of this, please share this episode with your friends and family and your workmates. And please follow the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And we'd love to bring Shelley back and share a few more insights on health and coaching that she does and the retreats that she is going to be doing in the future, especially the one in India. So thank you for joining us today. Have an amazing day. Champion your life and champion your greatness.